On this episode, I have a guest. I talk with Lisa Archer, a realtor who's been on a couple of HGTV shows. We talk about the reality of what happens behind the scenes to produce one of those shows and how it actually kind of relates to a real estate transaction, what the real estate agent is doing behind the scenes to get your home sold or help you buy a home that you just don't see. Episode 20 of the Inside Real Estate Show, and I am Darin of Persinger Group Real Estate and your host of the Inside Real Estate Show. Joining me on this show, I have a conversation with my dear friend, Lisa Archer. Let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. She's a realtor, and her business is based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Even though she's expanding, we talk about that during our conversation. But Lisa, even though she's based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Catherine and I are based here in the greater Seattle area, Lisa is such a dear friend. She flew all the way here for our wedding a few years ago. So that is, that's the kind of friend, the kind of person that Lisa is. She literally flew coast to coast just for our wedding. And in this conversation with Lisa, you're going to hear about her experience of doing television shows for HGTV, how she got started with getting into real estate, and what her future plans are for real estate. She's doing some pretty exciting things. So come take a listen and join me in this conversation that I have with Lisa Archer of Live Love Homes. All right, the first question I have for you, because actually, truthfully, I don't 100% know this, but what is your origin story? How exactly did you get into real estate sales?
All right. So my real estate story goes back about, almost 10, 12 years now. I was managing a bank. It was my first job out of college. And I was pregnant with Caroline, who's my second child, and she is ironically now 11. So anyway, long story short, I was managing a branch that was over an hour and 15 minutes each way from our house. And when I went on to maternity leave, mind you, I took 8 weeks instead of the 12 I was allowed.
Okay.
And I had told my, manager, who was the regional person, for months, find me something closer to the house. Find me something closer to the house. I'm not going to want to have a newborn an hour and 15 minutes one way every single day. That's going to be it's really hard on my family. And so I went on maternity. I came back 4 weeks early, and I went to my first manager's meeting, and sitting at the table are these two new people it wasn't on either side of me, but it was on either side of the table. So I could clearly see them. And I'm like, okay, great. And then when they went around to introduce themselves,
So this is the 8 weeks after.
Yeah, 8 weeks after my first manager, so 9 weeks probably. It was probably the next week. Walk into this meeting with all the managers from across the region, and one of them literally is in the office 5 miles from my house, a new manager, and the other one is 15 miles from my house. So 5 minutes and 15 minutes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So what does any good entrepreneur do? She goes back to her office, throws stuff, probably breaks a couple pencils, has a few choice words. And so this would have been, December. We get our bonuses in March. So we crushed our year. I got my bonus and put in my 2 weeks notice the next day. I was like, okay, if you don't value your people and you don't see opportunity and you don't give them what they want, especially when it's reasonable and helps their family, then, we are not going to be aligned in business together. So I left 2 weeks later, and my dad had had his license for a couple of years. He had retired from a Deloitte & Touche, and he'd had his license, and this was back in 05, 06, where you could just stick a sign in the yard and everything sold. So I was like, okay, I can do that. Well, knowing that it took a little while to get your license, I immediately went in and said, okay, what can I do right now to help him? And so I became his ISA. Long before that was ever created. You might remember that part of the story. So
inside sales agent.
Yeah. So I knew how to set appointments, follow up, social media was just getting started, getting big, and I had already decided I knew how to do that a little bit. And so I basically was just, I was touching his sphere. I was setting appointments, and before long, so my dad has this lovely thing that he says about when he's teaching a class in the office is he doesn't like real estate agents. He doesn't like attorneys. He doesn't like lenders. I'm not sure why he's in this business, even though that's not really true. You've met my dad. He does like people. And but when he goes into an appointment, I would shadow him, and we'd go on an appointment, especially on a listing, and it would be like an hour and a half later, we're walking out. I'm like, this is not, I can't do this. And it was way too long. And just because he wanted to get to know people and wanted them to be very comfortable with him. That was just not going to be my style. So I would within like 3-4 months, was able to trim down his hour and a half long listing presentation to about a half an hour, which is ironic because I'm actually going on 2 appointments right after we get done with this call. And I've got them planned an hour apart. So we'll see if I can still do that.
It better be 30 minutes long.
Yeah, right. It has to be 30 because they're about 30 minutes apart, literally the locations. Anyway, so that's really how it started. And then, I've got that personality, and I wasn't great with paperwork. So I'd go on the listing appointments, I'd come back with the paperwork, and I'd give it to him, and he'd start doing it. And I was missing, the dots on the I's and not crossing T's and missing dates. So before long, it shifted from I was out with the people and setting the appointments, and he was doing what he really does well. He's got a very high C. So he was doing paperwork and making sure everything was done. And luckily we got into electronic signatures really quickly, so he could fix the stuff that I forgot. Or I didn't even have to take it anymore. So we DocuSign early, then eventually went to Dotloop, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, and you guys have been growing and growing and growing. It's not just you two anymore. There's a lot more people involved now.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you've been able to do along the way then is, you're famous on social media. You're speaking around the country. Everyone knows who you are in the real estate industry. Right? In the real estate industry. But you also have done some TV shows, like you're old school famous too, by doing it was an HGTV show. Was that the channel? I don't want to say the wrong channel.
I've done a couple actually. So I've done, I guess it was 2010, 2011. I can't remember which. Anyway, the producer for My First Sale called and asked if I had a interesting family that we could do this show for. And basically the premise of My First Sale was first time sellers. So they had bought a house and they were now selling for the first time, and it was going through the process of what really goes on a sale. And so my family was fun. We're still good friends. In fact, the husband works with my husband, Jeff and Melanie. They're great, and we've since sold, I believe. We've worked with their clients for life and their friends, and so we did that show, and that one ended up with when it had to cut for time, like when they had to get ready to put it on air, we were under a lease purchase. So it kind of ended in this really interesting thing that never goes well. That's the only lease purchase I've ever done in my career in 10 plus years that closed.
Okay, so did they show that on the TV show that it was?
It ended in a lease purchase.
Okay.
Like the show had, like, they had to cut, and there was, and it was like 3 months later, I believe, that it did close. Like I said, it's the only lease purchase ever. And the reason they had to do it that they had to take the lease, or did the lease purchase, the clients that were buying the property were military. He was coming back from Iraq. The wife was coming in from somewhere else. The timing was not working. So we literally did the lease purchase because it made sense. It was a really good show. And then while we were doing that one, I become friends with the producers, and I guess, okay, so I'm easy to work with. I know how to do like the I can do video. I know, like, when you're going to do like HGTV or something like that, that you're going to say everything twice. We're going to run through it twice. So I just was prepared, and we got really good at just going ahead and saying, or, you know, saying it again, so they could have two cuts in case they wanted this angle or that, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I had this other client that I'd put her house on the market. Her husband had just died a year prior of pancreatic cancer, and she had a son, and they lived on a busy road. It was going to be another hard sale. And funny enough, we ended up filming that one during the same time I was filming this one. So I literally filmed 2 HGTV episodes at the exact same time. That one we did not end up selling. It was just too big of a nightmare for the seller to take an offer that she would have had to take at that time when the market was decreasing on that busy street. And they still live there. I talk to her all the time. Her son's now like 8 or 9. He's like Peyton's age. So it's really interesting. We're still friends. And when she does actually decide to move, she was going to go. She's actually a teacher for the deaf. And she was going to go to a different school, like in Georgia, but it ended up working out that she got her degree here, and she's doing stuff locally and raising awareness for pancreatic cancer. Still here in Charlotte.
Cool. All right. So, and I want to ask you some more questions about the production of those shows, but you have another show coming up that I do.
It's funny. I just shot a pilot in December. And the way that happened, you know me, I've been through bold training, and my life laws, what you focus on expands. So it wasn't, you know, it didn't surprise me whenever my daughter and I were talking in November sometime about, she's like, Mom, I haven't seen your HGTV show in a while. Are you going to do another one ever? And I was like, well, if they ever call, I would entertain it. Literally 2 hours later, my phone rings. It's a girlfriend of mine in Savannah, and she says, hey, have you sold a farm recently? And I was like, yeah, why? She's like, I've got a producer friend that's doing a pilot, and he needs a great agent that would show well on TV. And I know you've done HGTV before. Would you be interested in talking to them about shooting this shooting this new pilot? And I was like, all right, let's see. So I called, I talked to him. He told me the premise. Basically, it's moving to the farm or buying the farm. So that the clients are literally selling their house in the city to move to the country and have a farm. So I called my clients who are, again, it's kind of ironic who like these clients ended up being in my life is like they're really close friends of mine. And I called and said, all right, Mike and Holly, HGTV called. And they are piloting a new show about buying a farm. Would you be interested? And they're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Yes. And so we, over 3 or 4 days, filmed the whole show. It was a ton of fun. Brand new people on the production crew, new relationships created. I love the producers. His name is Patrick, and it was super fun.
So, doing 2 different types of shows, both for the same channel, HGTV, right? I want to make sure I get the network right in that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between the reality of the production versus what we see on TV?
All right. So honestly, in the first show, the first one I did, it was about 22 hours of filming and 22 minutes of show. The second one was probably a little bit less than that filming because I'd got, like we knew, I'd prepped my buyer or my seller, and I was like, all right, look, we're going to say everything twice. We're going to, and I had I prepped her. So it was probably a couple hours less than that. And then this last one we did, Mike and Holly were so good on camera and so easy to work with. And the things that I was able to do, and we had a ton of rain. So like we had a lot of stuff to work around. We probably filmed 15, 16 hours, and it'll still be 22 minutes of film, or 22 minutes of the show, taking out all, 8 minutes of commercials, of course, and credits and whatever. But basically, what you see, I don't know that there's there's a lot of stuff like when you're doing like house hunters and stuff that's a lot of staged, from what I've been told. But sometimes they are buying a house. They just have, and when you're on TV, you've got to give a little slack, because you're not going to film some dump. You're going to get 3 properties or 4 properties, whatever it is, that look good on camera. They might have flaws that you can point out, but all 3 of them would have been comparables to the one they purchased. And that's the same thing like with the farm one. We ended up with, I think we had 3 comps, and then what we called the money house. So like the one they bought. And, one of them would have, could it have been like you'll see when you see it. It could have been remodeled. It could have been redone. It was a horse farm. It would have worked. The second comp, they actually loved, and it became like a down to these 2. It was a prior bed and breakfast, or actually I think it's it's still active bed and breakfast. So like there could have been some income potential for them, but the barn wasn't ready yet. And my clients actually do have horses. She has the whole stable thing. Like you'll see on the house they bought, it was just perfect for them. And then the 4th one, great house, way too modern for their taste. So, but it had a barn that could have been fixed up and it would have been perfect. So, a lot of agents give HGTV a bad rap for their, for like client's sake. Yet they have to understand it's a TV show. The consumer and the public is not going to watch it if the houses are ugly.
Right.
I mean, that's when you watch HGTV, and I tell my clients, even my sellers to this day, when they're getting their house ready to go on market, I'm like, you've watched HGTV, right? And they're like, yeah. I said, I need your house to look like that. I tell them that because I'm going to video it, or I'm going to take pictures, or I'm going to walk people through, and I've got to sell your house twice. I got to sell it once online, and then I got to sell it. You got to sell it with a condition when the people get there. I need it to look like HGTV, right?
Right.
So that's my 2 cents on like the.
So do you ever, since you've been on TV doing these shows, have you ever run into clients that are hesitant about working with you because they don't want to be on camera? They're afraid you're going to share too much of something, and because of your social media influence too, or they're like, please don't document this process?
No, I've never had that. And it's funny you say that, because when I go into a property, especially if they have children, I literally walk around the house, and if they've got pictures of the kids, or if they've got their names on the wall, or if they've got school, anything that has to do with the kids' school, I'm like, that needs to go, that needs to go, that needs to go, that needs, because like I'm a wife first and a mom second, and I want that. That's their kids are my kids. I think the first thing I asked you was, hey, is Morgan there? So like, mom first. When I walk into a house, I'm like, all right, let's protect the kid. Let's protect the kid. Take that down. So I've never had that. I've never had anybody, it being negative. I've never had that.
Okay. What about the positive then? What?
So now we can literally walk, and I say we because I typically don't go on a listing presentation by myself. I have a listing, a co-listing agent, and I want him to go on as many appointments as possible so he can know everything that's going on in the house. He's got a relationship with the seller. Sometimes I'll take our showing agent who's brand new to the business so she can see how I do a listing presentation, and so she can see the house for when we get sign calls. And so I literally will walk in, I've got a presentation down to, like I said, down to 30 minutes. And and that does include walking the house and signing the paperwork. So like when I'm walking around, I will tell, talk to them about what they need to do, what they can do. And then I'll talk to, if I go in and there's somebody else who they're interviewing as well, I'll have the conversation about, well, is there anything here that, the other agent said to you or said they would do that we haven't talked about? And typically they're going to say no, because I've gone over everything. And then I'll say, okay, great. In addition to that, we also have what we call a social media plan. And it includes this, this, and this. And that's going to get your property out to this many people in this areas and, you know, in this time frame. And then depending on the property, we're going to push for an open house, you know, within the first 10 days or the first weekend, whatever it is, depending on like where it is. It's funny, the last 3 or 4 properties we've put on the market, we've literally gone to market the day we did an open house and gotten contracts of the weekend. It's crazy. But I think that's just that has to do with right now our market is just that hot.
Sure.
I'm sure yours is that crazy, similar.
Yeah, we're feeling that too here.
Yeah.
All right, so one last big question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Okay.
Something you might not be prepared for. Since we're talking about HGTV stuff, if you could create and produce your own show, what would be the premise? What would it be that you'd want to do, whether it was just one episode or a series?
It's funny you say that. I dreamed about it the other night. And I would want it to be, I think I would want it to be revolved around the team. And I would want it to be revolved around expansion and what really happens with clients. You know, we just sold a property that closed this past Monday that we had under contract 3 times. All 3 offers I had within 2 to 3 days of it being active on the market. I've got, you know, and, you know, one buyer fell out after we pushed back a week and waited another week when we probably should have gone back active. And my clients had to move and they have a baby, you know, the real life stuff of what happens and how everyone needs to stay cool and stay focused. And, you know, the roller coaster of being in this business, if you're not, you know, constantly lead generating and looking for new clients and helping the clients that you have and creating clients for life, that your business is going to do this. I would love to have that real story out there.
So the chaos and the invisible stuff behind the scenes,
the messy that people don't ever see,
and for some reason that we never want to tell people about, and then the consumers wonder what real estate agents do all day.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, that's a good. Hopefully, you can send this video then to one of those HGTV guys, and they'll go, yeah, let's talk about that some more.
The real life messy is so fun. I mean, it's real reality.
Right. Okay.
I would never have to make anything up. Well, and then think about the life of the agent, especially like if you've got kids. And, you know, today I've got 2 lists. I dropped the kids off at school. I went to the gym. I came home, showered, having this conversation with you. I got 2 listed appointments. I have a wine tasting broker open house this afternoon. And then I have to get back to get my daughter to dance. Like, that's a crazy day. And that's normal.
Have you seen the new Gary Vaynerchuk show he's calling the Daily V? I think he's calling it.
It's funny I literally just saw it on Twitter before I popped over here, and I have not watched it yet.
So he just has one of his production guys following him around from the moment he wakes up until he goes to bed, and implementing some of his own stuff that he's documenting. And he's doing it because he's like, none of you guys believe how hard I actually work and what my schedule looks like. So, all right. So that's kind of like a daily V for real estate agents for your team. Would they show you getting on planes going from city to city?
I think that would be fun.
Okay. So wrapping this up, tell us what cities Live Love Realty is in.
So let's see, so obviously in Charlotte, because that's where I'm at. That's where our hub team is. We've been in business here for over almost 12 years now. And then we have an expansion team in Syracuse, New York. We have an expansion team in Birmingham, Alabama. We just launched. It's actually official today. I will be posting it later, in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And we have relaunches in both Destin, Florida, the Panhandle, like the Emerald Coast area from Destin and Pensacola, and then Chicago.
So 5 or 6?
5 plus the hub.
Okay, great. And if someone is looking to move into that area or is watching this in that area and they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
The best way would be to go to our website, register livelovehomes.com, and just that's the best way to reach out.
Excellent. Lisa,
Thank you, dear.
it was good to catch up with you.
You too.
All right. I hope you get your reality show. Go. I would watch that.
How fun would that be?
I know. I'm telling you, like, this is the reason why I want to do this show.
Yeah.